Good morning, everyone. Happy Black History Month. Happy National Entrepreneurship Week. My name is Camila Cole, and I serve as the Executive Director of Administration in the Office of the Dean here at the CAU School of Business Administration. Thank you all for registering and joining us for this session of our second School of Business Forward Forum. So the Forward Forum is a series of panel discussions held throughout the 75th anniversary year of the CAU School of Business Administration. Each forum is hosted by a different department or program within the School of Business. It features a wide range of diverse innovators who are changing the face and future of their respective industries. Today's forum is brought to you by the management and marketing departments in the School of Business and the CAU Center for Innovation for Entrepreneurial Development. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the course of today's session through the Zoom Q&A feature. We'll reserve the chat for other things, but if you have questions, please put them directly in the Zoom Q&A, because we will have dedicated time toward the end of the session to engage and to answer questions. So at this time, we will hear brief words of welcome from the Dean, followed by the introduction of today's moderator and panelists. And now, the Dean of the CAU School of Business Administration, Dr. Sylvanus Udoka.
Thank you so much, Camila. The School of Business Administration has long served as the pioneer in business education for diverse people. Our founding institutions launched the nation's first business college for African Americans in 1883, Mark 1883, became the first minority institution to offer graduate work in business in 1929, and established the first HBCU, Graduate School of Business Administration, in 1946. Hence, the celebration of the 75th anniversary this year. Our school has educated generations of diverse learners and transformed them into dynamic business leaders. One of the ways that we do this is by connecting classroom instruction with insights from distinguished innovators from across the business world, and that is at a full display today. This tradition continues with today's Forward Forum. As Dean of the School of Business, and on behalf of our alumni, faculty, staff, students, I officially welcome all of you to the Forward Forum. And now, without further delay, I turn you over to one of our graduate students, Jasper Brooks, who will introduce today's topic and distinguished guests. Jasper.
Thank you so much, Dean Udoka, and good morning. I am Jasper Brooks, a proud entrepreneurial graduate student here in the CAU School of Business, and it is an honor to introduce our panel of distinguished guests for this Forward Forum entitled Cooking Up Innovative Success, Ingenuity and Entrepreneurship in the Food Business. Today's panel will be moderated by the amazing Brenda Prince, Chief Operating Officer of the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. Prior to her work at the Russell Center, Ms. Prince served as the Managing Director of The Farm, Comcast NBC Universal's innovation hub for startups and founders. She also held management positions at consulting firms Temple, Baker & Salone, and Bain & Company, where she was the first female consultant of color. Ms. Prince was also one of the select few engineers at Procter & Gamble. The Atlanta native received her chemical engineering degree from MIT and an MBA from Harvard. Our first panelist is a series entrepreneur and nationally syndicated writer, Jilea Hemmings, the co-founder of Nourish+Bloom Market, the first Black-owned autonomous grocery store in the nation. Ms. Hemmings is a former Chicago resident and a two-time graduate of Florida A&M University, where she earned both her bachelor's in business administration and her MBA. Next is Nicholas Perkins, the chairman, president, and CEO of Perkins Management Services Company, a contract food service business that he founded when he was only 24 years old. In 2021, Mr. Perkins stunned the business world with his $18.5 million acquisition of the Fuddruckers brand, a chain of 92 fast casual restaurants. Mr. Perkins is a native of Fayetteville, North Carolina, where he earned his bachelor's degree in business at Fayetteville State University. He later earned his MBA from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Our final panelist is Janaba Johnson-Jones, the founder and CEO of Hudson Kitchen, a food business incubator that enables entrepreneurs to start and establish sustainable businesses. Under Ms. Johnson-Jones' leadership, Hudson member businesses created 58 jobs, generated almost $9 million in collective revenue, and raised millions of dollars to fund their empires in 2021. Ms. Johnson-Jones holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in fashion merchandising from the University of North Texas and an MBA from the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our panelists, and this is the Forward Forum. Now, our moderator, Ms. Prince.
Thank you, Dean, Camilla, and Jasper for that warm welcome. Just sitting here and listening to the backgrounds of all the folks on here and looking at them on the screen, it is simply amazing. It's one of the things that I love about being here in Atlanta, and I'm so proud to be a native-born Atlantan. This is why we are such a special place. So I want to begin by just saying, food has always played a key role in the lives of Black folks. It's how we've celebrated our joys and found consolation for the lows. It sparked our creativity, it's paid our bills, and it's been featured at our family reunions and family dinners. It's part of who we are. So I'm delighted to spend some time today discussing the business of food and how it sustains the Black community and helps shape the world. Welcome to our virtual participants who we can't see, but we feel your presence. You'll have a chance to ask your questions later during the discussion as Camilla shared. And a special welcome to all of our panelists who will share, instruct, and inspire through our kitchen table talk. All of them are newsmakers. In fact, one of them, Jilea, was just in the news last night. So I'm honored. I know it's going to be great. Let's get started. So one of the first things that I was curious about, I'm not an HBCU grad, obviously, but I am the product of HBCU because both of my parents went to Clark Atlanta University. My mother is currently a professor at Spelman. I went to Booker T. Washington High School right down the street from the AU Center. So the AU Center was my playground. And I credit everywhere I go and everything I do with HBCUs for allowing me the opportunity and the chance to do that. Because were it not for that, I would not be here. So we're talking to, folks from HBCUs, people in the Atlanta community from all over. And I'm curious to start and kick this off. When you were in college, when you were in grad school, did you think you'd be doing this today? What did you think you would be doing? And why don't we get started with Jilea?
Sure, that's a great question. And first and foremost, thank you so much, Clark Atlanta, Dean, and everyone on the panel. I'm just really excited to be a part of this amazing group, and everyone is doing such amazing work. And I think that's a great question and a great way to start. Definitely did not think that this is where I would be when I left Florida A&M. They really did an amazing job of getting us ready to, jump into the workspace and work in corporate America. And I thought that was going to be my trajectory for sure. And like many people, I know I share the same story of many that, you get into corporate America, you start working your way up and you realize that you have tremendous potential that a lot of times is not recognized by the organizations that we work for. And some people decide they're just going to stay and hope it gets better. And for us, it was a conscious decision of mine to say, you know what, I know that there's more potential out there. I know I can create more. If I'm able to do this for them, what could I do for myself? And that's for me what made me take that leap. But for sure, did not think that when I first left and graduated, I would be here now.
And Nicholas, what about you?
Well, I tell you, I aspired to be here as an undergraduate student. It was something that I certainly, had set as a vision and a goal. But I tell you, as it has began to unfold, I'm just feel so very blessed to have in the past 16 years have had the successes and failures, because you learn quite a bit when you fail, and it helps you to learn and readjust and press forward. So I must say that I've been inspired by a lot of African American entrepreneurs, and Herman Russell being one of them. I learned about them and learned about the things that drove them and inspired them and encouraged them to press forward. And I used a lot of their examples to help to chart my course going forward. So I must say that to be where I am today and still looking toward the future, I must say that that inspiration came from other entrepreneurs that I looked up to.
And of course, Janaba.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. Did I think I would be here? Absolutely not. Even 7 years ago, or almost 8 years ago, when I was laid off from my job, I had no idea that I would end up in this place. I worked in business development for magazine publishers for many years, and when I was laid off, decided I just didn't want to do that anymore and wanted to be a personal trainer, and ended up thinking about launching the personal training business along with food meal delivery. Realized that there weren't any kitchens in my area, and started to research that and really fell in love with being able to provide commercial kitchen space for small food businesses, and didn't even know that was a thing, 8 years ago. So definitely didn't think I was going to be here at all.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about how your HBCU experiences, which most of you at least have said you didn't expect to be here. So how did that prepare you? And then let's talk about maybe how some of the failures help to also train you and provide you the experiences that got you to where you are today. Nicholas, I'm going to call on you first, since you talked about how the failures also encouraged and inspired you.
Absolutely. And so, I was 24 years old when I started Perkins Management Services. So I was a year and a half, out of undergraduate school. And, I was very ambitious, and I had spent the first year and a half of my career competing for federal government contracts. And, I just could not get an opportunity. And I pressed forward, was working with the SBA, and I said, we're trying to figure this thing out. And so, they were saying, well, the first 2 years is always tough. Because I was participating in the 8A business development program. And so, I had competed for a small contract, food service management contract. And when I had, wanted to venture out and try and grow, I found, every door that that I was knocking on, there was no one on the other side to let me in. And so, I began to question, whether or not that this was really, what I was supposed to do. And so this one particular day, I had planned a trip to go up to see the Army's small business representative. Her name was Tracy Pinson. And I told Tracy, I felt like I was encountering discrimination and, all these other things that were present in some aspects of federal contracting. And she opened some doors for me, and that helped me to to launch Perkins Management and then be able to begin to get federal contracts and build a competency and reputation for my company. And then Dr. Lawrence Richardson, who was the president of Morris College in Sumter, South Carolina, provided me with my very first contract at a HBCU. I was 29 years old at the time, new in the business, you know, but he took a chance on me. And Dr. Richardson really, I credit with establishing us in the HBCU food service realm. And so, you know, it took that persistence, but also it took people recognizing that you build capacity through opportunity. A lot of times people try to expect for you to, you know, put the cart before the horse in some instances. But I always continue to say to people that no one can build capacity if they're never given an opportunity. And I think that that's what my failures, you know, helped me to really be able to crystallize and be able to use that as a unique selling point to change the hearts and minds of people as they view minority entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Wow. Janaba, do you have something to add to that? Or I'm sure you do, because you have your own story, your own journey to share as well.
Sure. So, you know, going to Clark Atlanta, you know, HBCU specifically, really helped me to be more comfortable with myself. I am a product of, you know, PWI institutions all the way from, you know, preschool up, you know, through undergraduate. And so it was really nice to just be around people that were like me. It, you know, made me feel, you know, really good. I think that was, you know, something, you know, building that confidence, I think was really important for me in my career in general. Regarding failures, I think about more about regrets in not starting a business sooner. I really didn't even take the time to address with myself that the fact that I wanted to start a business. So what I mean by that is, if you work in corporate America, I had a really great job. I worked 4 days a week making over 6 figures. And I'm like, how could I give this up? What is wrong with you to make you think that you would want to go out on your own when you have this thing here that's helping to take care of your family? So I mean, really, it was just finally like the being laid off was kind of like a kick in the pants of like, okay, now it's time for you to go out and do your own thing. Let's figure out what that looks like.
Wow. And Jilea, what pearls of wisdom can you drop on us?
Sure. I mean, just like Janaba, I also went to, you know, predominantly white institutions prior to coming to Florida A&M, and all of my friends went to Ivy League schools, and my mother was quite disappointed at my choice to end up going to a historically Black college. And it ended up being obviously the best decision that I ever made, because what they provided for me was something that I never saw my other friends receive, which was training. And you said, how did going to an HBCU help you in business? I mean, they put us through boot camp. Our professional development program, I felt, took more hours than my, you know, business coursework, right? And it was only like 2 credit hours worth of credit for it. But, you know, they start you from freshman year being an employee, working you up with the opportunity to be a CEO and getting you into those boardrooms and having those discussions and bringing in Fortune 100 CEOs and having us ask, you know, questions and become comfortable in speaking in front of people. And all of those things are skills that, you know, when you start to get into business, you're going to have to be able to do, like, and not be intimidated when you have to stand in front of a room and talk about why your business matters and why you deserve that opportunity to have that chance, right? And being comfortable in those environments only came through constantly being drilled for 5 years on how to do it right. So, and then going out into corporate America, even, I'll say that, you know, while, you know, the Ivy League children were there and students were there, I shouldn't say children, but students were there as well. You know, we were given harder tasks, we were there longer, and, you know, really came out with experience. And I found ourselves, you know, working much harder than some of our Ivy League counterparts. So, and getting those jobs as well. So I will say that it was truly instrumental in getting me to where I am today. But it also, like, you know, Nicholas said, failure is part of that process. I mean, we failed our way up. And I always tell people, dare to fail up, right? So it's not about trying to avoid failure. It's about understanding that you learn from those experiences, right? So that you don't make those mistakes, you pivot, and then you get to the next step. So my challenge is always to dare to, you know, push yourself as far as you can, and knowing that you're going to learn from that failure. Sorry.
Thank you. So, listening to the three of you and knowing a bit more about your journeys, one of the things that strikes me is that it's a bit of taking a chance on yourself and other people, as Nicholas said, taking a chance on you as well. Having that confidence, I think both Djenaba and Jilea talked about having that confidence that comes from not only the preparation, but the experience of things. And then the other thing that underlies all of this is the community that you get from being alongside people who look and work like you, who believe in some of the same things and have some of the same experiences that you have as well. So I'm curious, based on those things, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Looking back now, what would you say?
I'll go. So I think I would looking back, I would say, ask for help. Because sometimes we think, you think you can do it all yourself, or you know what to do, or you're just a little bit afraid. But I found that my success in business has come from me being able to be vulnerable and ask people for what I need. I think that's really important.
Great one.
I think also that I would say hire better and go a little slower. I think that, we were always taught that in business, growing too fast is just as could be, just as destructive as not growing at all. And so, the 24-year-old me who struggled those first 2 years, totally threw that out the window. So it was foot on the gas, right? And what I learned was it's equally important to have an infrastructure that can sustain and support the business that you as an entrepreneur are building, and you have to build them both simultaneously. And that's a lesson from an administrative standpoint that I learned the hard way.
Great points. And then I would also, add to that about finding, someone, who are you surrounded by? Who's your network, right? Surround yourself by folks that are doing what you want to do, but are ahead of where you want to be. And because what they can do is really provide you with, the rules to skip, the rules to know, right? And so that you're able to not have to make as many, you're going to make mistakes. That's part of the process, but you're not going to have to make as many. It can help you avoid some key pitfalls because they've been there before. And then also to help you, but I definitely echo Janaba and Nicholas's points as well.
So all of you are involved in leading some aspect of food, the food industry, in your own different ways. Can you share with us maybe just how that integrates into not only who you are career-wise, but what you want to accomplish maybe personally and professionally? Like, what is your vision based on the industry that you're in? And how did you choose your respective routes to get there? Maybe we can start with Janae.
Can you just repeat the question? I just want to make sure I got that.
So
right.
what I'm asking is, given that you all come at this from a very different angle, the food industry, Djenaba, I'm so interested because you have your innovation incubator for food. Everybody comes at this from a different way. So how did you come at it from that way? How did you decide to do it that way versus the way that Nicholas has done, which is to be a CEO of franchises? So how did that shape what you're doing, and how does that shape what you want to accomplish and do?
Sure. So I came about this on completely by accident. Like, I never even thought about being in the food industry until 7-8 years ago. And what I realized in wanting to initially start a meal prep business was that I didn't really want to start a meal prep business. What I really enjoyed was helping other people start businesses. So through my work career, and I want to say, like, I am on my third career right now. I started out in fashion merchandising. We were doing product development. I moved and worked in magazine publishing and digital marketing for several years before I did this. And all of those experiences I was able to bring with me that kind of shaped what I'm doing now. So all that writing a business plan, I did that at work. If I wanted to introduce a new product that we wanted to sell, we had to create a P&L around it. How much are you going to sell? How much money do you think we're going to make? So it made it really easy for me to walk in and say, I'm going to help this person learn how to start a food business. And then you also learn, because of networking, you learn how to network. So I went and made the relationships that I needed to help me. I don't know everything. So when I teach a food business boot camp class to get people started. I wrote the course, but then I brought in experts to help teach the class, lawyers and culinary experts and people that create, help create business plans and marketing people. So it's really like figuring out, kind of was able to figure out who the network I was going to be that I could rely on to be able to start my business. So I really just bought food. Food is fun. I go to work every day. People put food in my face. I don't cook anything. Honestly, if I walked in the kitchen and started cooking something, they would look at me like I was crazy, right? Like I even order my food from the people my businesses that work there. I order meals and I just keep them in the microwave and eat them. So I'm not, a food person in that sense, but being able to provide that infrastructure for somebody to have a business that's successful, having clients that started out making 5 trays of falafel a week to doing 9 pallets a month and shipping out regionally and nationally to grocery stores is like mind-blowing to me, and really, is a really excited to watch someone's growth. I'm so inspired by it.
Well, and Jilea, what about you? What about your experience has led you to this way of expressing your vision for the food industry?
Sure. So for myself, it came out of a personal need. I got involved in food when my son was diagnosed with autism. So when he was 2 years old, they talked about the importance of diet and how by changing his diet, we could really, truly have the biggest impact in his life. And so at the time I was working in corporate America, like we spoke about, and I was like, how are we going to make these well-balanced meals every day? But it was our son, so we had to figure it out. And so, we started to come up with traditional kids' favorites, looking at traditional kids' favorites and coming up with a healthy alternative to them. And we ended up being the first to make meatless substitute meals for kids before Beyond Meat, before Impossible was cool, right? And so with that, what I learned was that, if this worked for him, how many other children could it work for? And that's really been the stem of how all of my business opportunities have gone. It's been strictly out of, it working for us and knowing that, something this good cannot just be shared with us. How do we make sure that we share it with the world? And so fast tracking to where we are now with Nourish+Bloom, it was the same concept. We moved to Atlanta, we found ourselves in a food desert again. And I said, what we learned the last time when we were in the food space was that not only did children need to eat healthy, but everybody needed to eat healthy. And as we started doing market analysis, we realized that more than just prepared meals, they needed a full market. And so with our background in food and tech, we decided that, it was right in the middle of the pandemic. How do we share this and how do we create a solution that's going to help for the future, not just for today? And that's something that, even Jeff Bezos talks about, that he's in his lighthouse and every once in a while he comes back down. So I wanted to make sure that we looked at what the future of food production and access to food look like. And that's why we decided to infuse technology in the way that we did, because we knew that it was about access and we knew about food deserts and how many of them exist in the world, and that through technology, you could deploy more and get access to more people in an affordable and healthy way. So for me, it started as a personal need for my son, which I always say, he's been the spark of everything that we've done. But it's also about, I say through him, he's truly a gift, because, when we find solutions for him, it's always our goal to share with the masses, because we believe that everyone deserves the right to eat healthy.
And Nicholas, your thoughts on this?
And so for me, I view entrepreneurship as freedom. That's how I categorize it. It gives me the freedom to be able to chart my own course and, be able to create the life that I would want for myself and for others. But globally, holistically, when I think about what inspired me, to be an entrepreneur and what has, made me choose the industry that I chose, I have to credit 2 things. One, my grandmother was such a phenomenal cook. And I absolutely fell in love with the artistry of it, as I describe it. And she was and I wanted to learn everything about it. So, in my spare time, it's something that I do to relieve stress. And I've had the benefit of working in and around so many great culinarians, and I picked up a lot of things. But I look at entrepreneurship and knew that I wanted to have an impact, societal impact. And what could I do, with my work and my career, my talent and skill sets to be able to improve and impact the lives of other people. And I referred to Dr. A.G. Gaston, who was a businessman in Birmingham, Alabama. During the height of the civil rights movement, I learned how Dr. Gaston was able to use his business enterprises to be able to create an African-American middle class in Birmingham, Alabama. So I learned the power of entrepreneurship and what wealth can do if it's used as a tool to impact the lives of other people. And so, those were the things that really brought life to what I felt like my career could be. And then I looked at the industry that I was in, and competing against what I consider to be giants of our industry. I was able to do that even as a very young age because I had people who understood how important opportunities were. So, we fight the Aramark, Sodexos, Compass, and Chartwells of the world day in and day out as an independent minority business. And so, we see that, again, that these are companies that have vast wealth and resources that, even a company, like mine did not necessarily have. And so, when I think about, how we go out and compete, necessity is the mother of invention. One, I always say that. Two is that, capacity is built through opportunities. So as we were given opportunities, we were able to build capacity and be able to compete. So it's kind of a threefold spectrum for me. I look at personally what entrepreneurship means to me, freedom. Two, the societal impact that wealth can bring and generate, and how it can, be a tool to empower others and deal with societal problems. And then three, understanding that, if given an opportunity, demonstrating to others what can really be done whenever we are absent of racism and discrimination in America.
So first of all, Nicholas, you got to burn for us sometime in the kitchen because you've already talked about your grandmother and recipes and what you did. I'm more like Jilea. I'm retired from the kitchen, so but it's good to hear that other people aren't. What I heard was like freedom, necessity, fulfillment, those refrains of why you're in this, why you're doing this. This is your why. So let's talk about some of the larger societal issues that you brought up, Nicholas, in terms of everything from the food deserts that I think that Jilea talked about, to the impact on wealth generation and creation that you're talking about, Nicholas, to Janaba, to what you're talking about, which is enabling entrepreneurs to scale and grow and build. So how do those take on a particular context and flavor in the Black community? Janaba, you want to start?
Sure. So I think that I'm a product of entrepreneurs. I didn't really realize growing up that they were entrepreneurs. It just was what they did. And so I think that what it does for our community is help us to build generational wealth. I mean, I think that and I agree with Nicholas, like that, the freedom to be able to, go out and build wealth, I think is something that, is really important to the community.
I'll add to that as well. So, I as well come from a product of entrepreneurs. I think about my grandmother, right? She was a nurse by trade, but she was selling the vests and the snacks and everything to all of her, colleagues. And, she was always had something else in addition to, which allowed her to be able to travel the world. And from when I was 13, my father has not worked for anyone, right? So he started his own law firm and has been employed by himself since then. And I look at just, not even just within my family, but just the legacy that we all come from of just amazing entrepreneurs that we all stand on the backs of. And I think that one of the biggest things is that we have to think about the legacy play, right? It's not just about now, it's about the legacy for the future. And I think for so many of us, we're starting behind, right? A lot of our other colleagues come with, trust funds and other things that give them, homes or whatever it is that give them a leg up and assets to start their life with. They're never starting from zero. And it's just always amazes me that how we can still start from zero and how far we can get. But imagine if we could leave that legacy so that, the next generation doesn't have to start from zero. And I think that's what's so important is that, with all of us, how do we teach entrepreneurship and inspire others to want to also own their own businesses as well and show them the power of what entrepreneurship can do to their families and what that means for them. And I think, each and every one of the folks on this panel is really doing that, which is awesome because we won't be starting from zero moving forward.
Nicholas, did you want to add anything to that as well?
Yes, and I echo, our co-panelists here in that respect. When I think about the issue of the racial wealth gap in America, I think it's our most urgent and persistent issue that we are facing. And the lack of access to capital really is something that we consistently hear about year in and year out as a barrier to minority business development. And, when you really start to peel back the layers, I think it's important to recognize that we're seeing some banks stepping forward and admitting really that they know that there are challenges even within their own organizations to not lending to people of color and people in disenfranchised communities. And, even people who are qualified are still finding problems with getting access to the capital that they need to be able to start, manage, and grow their businesses. And so I think in order for African Americans and other minorities in our country to really be able to have real equity as an entrepreneur, those barriers have to be broken down. And I believe that it is managed discrimination. And I think we reflect back on the civil rights movement. And when we looked at, I liken it to the Fair Housing Act's effect, because realtors were managing the discrimination in a lot of areas. The real estate agents were managing discrimination, keeping people out of certain neighborhoods. I don't believe that it is a coincidence that minority businesses are facing the challenges that they are facing with large banks, and getting the access to capital they need to be able to start growing, managing. That's something that needs to be brought to light. The racial wealth gap in America continues to grow, and we got to do something about it. Now, I think that we all understand that we have the talent and skill set to go out and work in corporate America, but that is not necessarily narrowing the gap. I believe that, as Ms. Hemmings said, it's about a transfer of wealth. It's about having the ability to be able to go out and not only be able to create wealth during your lifetime, but be able to create a posterity, pass a business along generationally, to be able to continue that is something that we have not necessarily seen. I think our oldest businesses in the Black community typically are funeral homes. When we see a business reach 100 years old, most of them are funeral homes. And so, and we can, point to them all across the country, right? And but when we look at service industries, and I think the Russell Company is a very unique example of seeing a business outside of that, being able to be passed along through generations. But I certainly believe that it's something that we all have to look at and have a very serious conversation about.
Let's lean into that a bit more and talk about some of the systemic challenges, barriers, structure that's in place. Certainly during COVID, we've heard everything from the Atlanta Fed, which has taken a real hard look at the series through their series on racial economic gap here in the US. We've seen it, everything from healthcare with access to early COVID testing and early COVID vaccines. We've seen it because 60% of Black businesses failed during the last 2.5 years or so during COVID. So we've seen it everywhere. We felt it. We've lived it. I'm really curious to know how the three of you have experienced in your businesses during this time of challenge and transition, underscored by what you're saying, Nicholas, which is in part some things that were already existing and systematically there, but maybe were exacerbated by the pandemic. And then I think, Jilea, you said you started during the pandemic. I think you started your business during the pandemic. So there's that opportunity that was created and that you were able to seize during it. So I'd like to just hear your own experiences about how you've been able to weather, pivot, deal with, capitalize, leverage what's happening in the world right now. Everything from the pandemic to what I say, certainly our social awakening awareness that we're experiencing collectively. I'm going to ask Nicholas to go first on that.
So, for us, we were devastated by the impacts of COVID-19 because everything literally came to a screeching halt. 100% of our revenues came from the food industry, from restaurants to colleges to every single contract that we had was put on pause. The students left abruptly. All of our campuses shut down. All of our restaurants closed, and it was a come to Jesus moment for me and for many other people in the company who probably would have never thought that we would experience some of the things that we experienced. And so you had to dig deep internally and dig your heels in to find a way. And that's where I think that true leaders emerged during that period. Those who survived this particular pandemic should be so confident in their talents and skills and abilities and wherewithal that if you can survive this, you can survive anything. And so we also needed the support of the relief funding that was available from the government. So we were able to get the PPP funding to help keep us going during that period of time. We would not have gotten it, however, if we did not have a relationship with a minority bank like the Harbor Bank of Maryland, who stepped in, recognized the need. They worked tirelessly to get funds in the hands of small and minority-owned businesses. But it took a relationship, and many of us don't have those relationships. And I think that if you do not have anybody advocating for you, even in circumstances and situations like that, that are sensitive to those special circumstances, you'll wind up being in the other percentage of those of us who did not make it. And so, I was able to just knew that I had to get up every day and find a way to survive. Otherwise, 14 years worth of hard work would have been wiped out literally by the pandemic. And so I wasn't going to allow that to happen. In addition to that, we looked for other opportunities and ways for us to be able to reinvent ourselves. And so I found that, that there was opportunity even in the pandemic, like with Fuddruckers, we were able to get that done during the pandemic where, there were opportunities. And so, I shifted my focus to that and trying to find ways to diversify the company and press forward. And that's what we did. And, we're still in recovery mode, right? Our industry is still impacted by that. But we just found a way, because we were being persistent in it. And we had to be quite honest that, even the challenges that we faced, I had to lean on, again, the examples of other minority entrepreneurs who came before me who faced, in some instances, even greater challenges. So, I had to, call on their strength, so to speak, and find a way to be able to continue to press forward. And that's what we were blessed and fortunate enough to be able to do.
Great. Janaba, Jilea, do you want to jump in and share yours as well?
Sure, I'll talk. So I was fortunate enough that our business was not completely impacted by COVID. Fortunately, because we are food manufacturing, we are considered an essential essential business and were allowed to remain open, at the beginning of COVID. And because of two things, one is one of my clients pivoted from what they were doing to e-commerce, which helped their businesses grow during that time because they were able to on ahead. Like a lot of them were doing e-commerce, but they kind of ramped up e-commerce, which was helpful. And then the other thing that they did, which was amazing, was they raised over $400,000 to make meals for frontline workers. So they did 70,000 meals. What that allowed them to do was hire each other, which means people remained employed. And I was just kind of blown away by all of that. But in turn, that helps me because they were able to pay their membership fee, their rent and membership fees, and we were able to, keep the business going. So I am truly grateful for that.
And I'll add to that, so we started in the middle of the pandemic. So the PPP money we didn't qualify for. And so that was tough. So we were like, okay, this is what we want to do. How do we go about getting the funding? And it was literally, going to friends and family to get that first set of capital to get us where we needed to go. And then, we needed to get more money. And, we went to the big banks and we couldn't even really get, further than, right in the, not far at all, right? Like they weren't really there to help us. And so a friend of mine, this is where that mentorship comes in again, told us to go to a local bank. And so we went and started looking at local banks and transitioned and learned all about the 5 C's. So I encourage everyone to look up the 5 C's because it is real when it comes to getting an SBA loan. And, we wanted to make sure that we were well positioned to be able to qualify based on those 5 C's for an SBA loan. And even with that, we still didn't get what we needed to get. They didn't understand our business. And, so this is another thing that happens is that you'll ask for a certain amount that's what you need to get you where you need to go. And then they don't give you what you need. So, it's because of just, our previous businesses before. We've lost businesses in the past. So, we know what it's like to be on both sides of the spectrum. And we just had to go out and literally get it, right? And just continue to share our message. And we had a lot of people that just heard about what we wanted to do and believed in what we were doing and, and came behind us. But it was really the support of the community, right? And that goes back to our dollars again. $1 makes a difference. If you start shopping and patronizing these businesses as a community, when you think about our $1 trillion buying power, it makes a difference because it was really tough. I mean, right at that time, when you talk about supply chain, everyone's experience were shortages on everything. Construction costs were 2 and 3 times what they should have been, right? And then you're going into a technology space that has never been really addressed before. So there's really no benchmark or, there really was no one to call, really. I couldn't call Amazon like, hey, could you tell me, your secret sauce or how you make the sausage? That wasn't happening. So, it was really, it took a lot. It was a tough time to do it, but it was also a time of opportunity. I feel like when things happen, it's a time to pivot. Nicholas just talked about that, that through that Fuddruckers came to be. And so, and just like you said, with the $400,000 being raised so that you could still, be able to be operational. That's the kind of genius I feel that comes during the times that are tough. That's when you really start to know like what you have inside and you really start to make the magic happen. So for us, Nourish and Bloom came out of it and it's great. And we're still raising funding and it's still tough. And it's, finding mission aligned. I think that's the key that can help you really bypass a lot of the no's is finding folks that are mission aligned with what you're trying to do. So if you're in the food space, it doesn't make sense for you to go to the fintech space looking for funding, right? They're not going to say yes, right? So it's about finding mission aligned people, and whether it's funds or whatever, or accelerator programs is another way too, where you can at least get some of that startup capital, by going through their 6 month or 6 week to 6 month accelerator programs. A lot of times they do come with funds that can help you get started, help you prove your muscle and your model. And sometimes these VCs want to see that. So, it's not easy, but I mean, greatness definitely did come out of it, as much as, there was a lot of hardship as well.
I love that, to say that greatness can come out of it. Greatness can come out of adversity. And listening to you all, it just reinforces that the hallmarks of Black folks have always been reinvention, resiliency, and relationships. That's something that we know inside and out. And I said that during the pandemic, there were two groups of people that were best poised to come out of this well, and that we could all learn from. One was entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs every single day have to fight for what they're doing. And you have to pivot, and you have to you have to be nimble, and you have to grow. And so there are so many variables that are changing as an entrepreneur, that looking at the lessons that entrepreneurs can teach all of us on that. And then the other one is Black folks. We certainly are, we're used to the struggle. We're used to having to be stronger. We're used to having to be better in a different way than most folks, mainstream folks maybe don't have that because they don't have to. I would like to maybe shift to talk about the food industry and what you're seeing in terms of trends. So if you are looking at 5-10 years down the road, what are the careers in the food industry that are percolating up? And what role does technology play, and will it play as the food industry continues to evolve and grow? Who wants to take that one first?
I'll start. So I think technology is going to play a huge role in the food industry as we move forward, for sure. It's already playing a huge role. I think it's now a transition. So every role that currently exists is being enhanced by technology. It's not, making your role obsolete. It's just tweaking what your role currently is. So like the cashier, as we have all started to see in the grocery space, every grocery store is now put in a self-checkout of sorts, right? The next step is autonomous shopping. I'm telling you that because I know what they're doing on the back end, and they're building for that. And so the issue is, well, where do I fit into that? So if you're taking away my role, where do I go? And now it's about experience. Everyone is about experiential shopping, because now post-pandemic, if you're going to get anybody out to do anything, it has to be an experience, because they have really learned and have become experts in doing everything from the comfort of their couch, right? So with that, if you are going to get someone into a brick and mortar, it has to be experiential. So they're now moving that cashier experience into an experiential position, experience with that cashier. Even when it comes in the back kitchen, there's now robotic arms, and we see all these food companies that are starting to utilize robotics in the kitchen space to make them more efficient. But somebody has to be able to fix those robots, right? And somebody has to be there to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. And they all still have some form of manual loading. So the roles are changing, and you're now there more in oversight. But I will say that, understanding AI and understanding robotics and understanding what's happening is going to be key in the future. And I know for us, no matter what role you work in within our stores, you're learning about robotics, you're learning about AI, you're learning about how to make my job easier, because the technology is making your job easier. Even from an inventory management perspective, they're now automating that, we're automating that, but it still has to be monitored. You still have to be able to do that role of putting that information in and monitoring those reports and monitoring those systems. So it's just a role shift that is happening, but it's not taking jobs away, but it is requiring new training that has to be done. And so the key is that if you can get on front of it and realize these are what the jobs of the future look like, and you start now, you'll be a commodity that will be extremely sought after, because a lot of people are not paying attention to that. They're just seeing it, but they're not knowing what to do. And then they're seeing it as a job removal instead of a job enhancement. And so I think that's how we have to look at it and say, well, what is that robot going to need? Like, we have delivery robots. They still have to be human loaded, right? So it's not taking away the job. It's like, well, how do I make that more efficient? How do they support what I do? Is really the way that I think we have to look at what's happening in the future, but it's definitely coming in all areas of the food space, for sure. It's happening now.
So for me, I'll come at that from a different perspective. So what I'm seeing, in my kitchen and kind of in the industry is, and what we've been seeing over the years is a trend towards more natural foods, a trend towards so vegan and gluten-free, those types of things, but really taking something that macaroni and cheese, or something that you would normally make that your grandmother make, and making it vegan is something that's something that we're kind of seeing, of giving people the opportunity to enjoy that thing that they love, but that, maybe it's plant-based, so maybe it's just a little bit better for them. So our entire facility, I didn't plan it this way, but everyone is making something healthy. Every meal is healthy. Every brownie that goes out the door is gut friendly and vegan and all these other things. So that's kind of like what I see on a day-to-day basis for the businesses that I work with.
And Nicholas, how does that impact you with both in terms of the technology that Jilea was talking about, and then also in terms of the healthy trends that Janaba was talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we've been really forced to reimagine, service delivery in those aspects. So, I mean, we're doing quite a bit in around, the area of technology where we're looking at, better ways to meet our customers where they are. So, utilizing mobile applications, we're studying non-traditional models where we are able to do more things out of ghost kitchens and less brick and mortar, supporting third-party delivery. We are innovating on our menus. We've got some partnerships, some plant-based partnerships where we're going to be rolling out some plant-based menu options in our restaurants. But also, we're, not, integrating technology, in such a way that I think that we're going to be eliminating, jobs, so to speak. We really want to try to, continue to support people and provide career paths and opportunities for them. I think where our investments, right now in technology are more so centered around the consumer's perspective and, improving their, experience with us and the delivery of food to them, how we get it to them, the packaging that we use, and the types of things that we serve. But I know that our industry quite naturally at some point will evolve there, especially with the rising cost of labor and all of those other things that you see. But I believe that like with everything else that we're confronted with, we'll figure it out.
So all three of you are in very unique positions as CEOs of your respective businesses, organizations, and so on. In terms of what is your top priority as CEO, be it operational or transformational or maybe societal impact, but as CEO, where you sit, because it's a place that many of us don't sit and don't have that opportunity to. What's your challenge? And then what is your advantage? And I know that Nicholas, you talked about the freedom, and Jilea agreed with that, the freedom part of it, but what do you see as CEO?
So my priority right now is to grow my business revenue. I feel very strongly that we haven't hit the ceiling yet for this business. And so I'm really wanting to grow the business. A challenge for me is leads. So a pipeline of people to come through, as prospective members of the kitchen. I struggle with that because my kitchen is not for everyone. So we are a membership-based kitchen. The idea is that you pay a flat monthly fee and you are able to come and go as you please, right? So you treat it like it's your own space, other than the fact that you put everything away when you leave because, we are shared. The idea is that, it allows a lot of flexibility. And with that comes price, right? So we provide everything. So from towel service to cleaning to all these things. So you literally can walk into the space, receive your food from your distributor, make your food, wash your dishes and go and leave and go home. Versus you having to think about anything else. If something breaks, I fix it, right? We get it fixed. If you need some more towels, I'm there for you. If something needs to be cleaned, my staff is going to do that for you. And so that does come with a price. And so it's like finding the right type of client whose business can support the membership fee for Hudson Kitchen is my challenge.
And for us, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Hemmings.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I thought you had gone already, but what I was going to say was that I think for us, on both sides is stabilization and recovery. and then repositioning both brands, I believe for growth in a new world, right? I think, we've, the old way of doing business, the old way of doing things, I think has passed away, and that there are certain things that will never be the same. And so I think for us right now, it's stabilization, recovery, and growth. And those are our greatest challenges, dealing with issues that are confronted, with supply chain and, labor issues and all of those things that we have to manage day in and day out, that makes our job tough. But I think when you keep everything in perspective, we survived. And so, having to deal with, some of those challenges in this instance is even a blessing, because there are certain people who didn't make it.
Sure. And for us, there's a lot of growth to go with us for sure. Our foundational principle is about increasing access to healthy food in a convenient way. And we want to, make sure that everyone has access to Nourish and Bloom markets right within their market. One of our challenges right now is just economies of scale. As far as small business owners, one of the main reasons why you see so many close is that a lot of times what they're paying for their products at wholesale is the retail price of the big boys, right? So for us, it's about, utilizing the ability to be the first in this space and to have a lot more of the industry be interested in what we're doing because it's so new. Utilize this platform and my voice to say, how are you going to help us make sure that we all survive, right? And so, we're starting to have those conversations because it is really key. We want to make sure that everyone has access to good food, but if you're pricing people out of that opportunity because you're getting priced out and you have a business to run as well, it becomes quite challenging. So for us, it's about really working on economies of scale so that we can continue to make sure that it's accessible and work with those groups and teams and distributors that have decided that they're going to make that commitment to us and, leave the others behind, because it's really about who's going to be ready to work with us and partner with us for the future to make sure everyone has access to good food.
And Jilea, to that point of who's going to partner with you and work with you, and how do you grow and scale? How do you go about? What are your funding sources? What do you look at? How did you start your own businesses? What not led you to it, but what enabled you to do it? In terms of where did you get the funds?
So I'll start. For us, it was friends and family. Was the biggest part of our first bucket of money that we needed to be able to show to the SBA that we had, the money that they asked for. They actually came and asked us for more than what normally is asked for. So we had to almost come with almost 50% of what we were asking for, which is ridiculous if you understand the scope of how the SBA is supposed to work. And then from there, now we're looking for mission aligned, so it's from there, once we've been able to show that this is actually viable and that it's actually real and not just a concept. For us, it's been looking for mission aligned angel and VC partners to help us with that growth. And also sometimes the places that you're actually putting your business, right? See if the developers, what opportunities do they have and ways that they're willing, if they would like for you to be a part of their projects, how do they want to help truly be your partner and not just, your landlord per se, right? And because they do have resources, especially now. And looking at areas that offer incentives too, like we're looking at that with opportunity zones being a big area, because, is there something that we can get from the cities that we're going into and states, because they all have pillars that they need to follow. If you're doing job creation, which I know we all are, and providing jobs, are there incentives that the state can provide back to you in job retraining and those things, which also translate into money, right? It might not seem like it if you're putting that output cost, but on the back end, when it's time to do taxes and those things, those tax breaks definitely do help. So those are some of the things that we're looking at and doing to help us with our growth.
So I received funding I received an SBA loan to build out my space and for working capital. I was fortunate enough to work with a local economic development group who, after I finished my business plan, shopped it to the banks. So when I had my bank meetings, I didn't put those together. They did it for me. This was all free because they were what they wanted to do to support small business. So there's a lot of free resources out there. They shopped it. I met with 3 banks. I got 2 offers and took the best one with a regional bank here, which was amazing. But I also did start out with friends and family. My parents and my in-laws were able to contribute to the business as well. And I should be embarrassed to admit this, but I cleaned up my 401k and we took money out of our home to be able to do what we're doing this. But that is a real, and I know a lot of other people that have done it that don't always talk about it, but that is the real truth and what we did to get started.
Well, I absolutely had to start from scratch, literally. And so, I had to use my own personal savings, and that wasn't much. I just knew I needed to get through the first 30 days of billing for that first contract that I had. So I was the cook, I was the food delivery guy, and I was the janitor, because that's what it took in the beginning to be able to get past that point. And American Express open credit card. That's how I did it in the very beginning. And then once you don't, I learned that once you figure it out and you're able to start to generate your cash flow and you don't necessarily need money, is when everybody wants to lend it to you. So after we had began to get established, that's when a local regional bank in Charlotte, North Carolina, gave us our first line of credit. And so we've been with them ever since. And so a lot of it has literally just been growing the company and reinvesting the profits for growth. So I've been able to maintain, ownership of the brand that way. And that would just be my, it was just my personal preference, because of, how I view my role as an entrepreneur. And so I've grown slower because of that. That method, but it's worked for me.
Yeah, I think those are some real comments about the reality of how do you get that first start. Jjenaba, you're talking about not something that you're proud of, but something that you had to do. And Nicholas, it is so true that when you have money, it's easier to get money. It seems like it's an oxymoron, or it shouldn't be that way, but it is so true that once you get it, it is so much easier to get it. So getting that first customer makes it easier to get that second, third, fourth, and fifth. Always. That's a recurring thing that we hear and we see all the time. So I want to make sure that we leave some time also for our audience to jump in here. I know we can't see them, but they can see us. But I'm curious, my last question really for all of you, since we're talking about food, is I'd like to know your favorite food. I'll start with mine. So give you the pancakes. I say they are the food of gods. No shame to you with Fuddruckers, but say they are the food of gods and goddesses. It was placed on this earth to bring joy and delight. So who cannot eat pancakes and not love it? And I say for shame if you don't finish your pancakes. So I will shame you. Pancakes are my thing. Djenaba, what's your favorite one?
Sure. So I've spent a lot of time in Texas. So I grew up mostly there. Is what I claim as home. And I would say Tex-Mex food, hands down. Like you can just hand me some chips and salsa and guacamole, and I'm good.
All right, Jilea.
Sure, for me. So I actually have 2. So my family is Jamaican. So Jamaican food for me will always be, a place where I just get extreme excitement and love about. But I also am a Chinese food, and I should say New York Chinese food fanatic.
All right.
And it's easy
Nicholas.
for me. I just like soul food. I like Southern food, scratch made Southern cooking. That's what I was raised on, and that's my favorite thing to cook, and it's my favorite thing to eat. So I would say soul food.
Great. Well, thank all of you. Now I know what to do if I ever want to get us all together with kind of food. Get some chips and salsa, get some New York Chinese food. So I'm going to have to figure out the difference between that and maybe. Now I will say San Francisco has some really good Chinese food, so that might give a run for the money. And then Nicholas, yours will be easy. I'll just bring you to, be in Atlanta, go anywhere. In fact, we can go across the street from the Russell Center where Pascal's is, and you can get all the food you want there. So I see Camilla's on. She's going to guide us through some of the Q&A. So if you have questions for our panelists, please do put them in the chat. We are eager to make sure that this is engaging for you and informative, and you get what you want out of this as well.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been so insightful. I'm loving this discussion. So for a student, say if you're a student and you're listening to this panel and you think, okay, I want to get into the food industry, what would you recommend as a first step? And this is open to anybody.
So for me, so my biggest thing is to kind of narrow down what is it that you like to do. So I come from the point of people making a food product, right? So the idea is that once you figure that out, the first place I started with my business is I did a competitive analysis. What is going on in the community, in the area? Who is making a similar type of product? Who are they selling it to? How are they selling it? And how much are they selling it for? And I think that's the place where I would, definitely start before you even register your business. What is the likelihood that somebody's going to want to buy what you have to sell?
And I'll add to what Janaba said and say the other part of it is how are you going to be different, right? If you're coming with a chocolate chip cookie and they have 50 other chocolate chip cookies, what's going to make your chocolate chip cookie stand out, right? Because a lot of times to get that opportunity, especially being new, you want to have something that no one else has, right? So it's hard for them to say no, where if they have 10 others, it's easy for them like, we already have 10 on the shelf, right? So I think that and testing it, out with your network first, making sure that it's not just good to you, right? There are a lot of things that I think are good that everybody's like, you're crazy, Jilea. So, making sure that, others outside of you see that you have something that's viable. And then, that's why I'm so excited that Janaba is here. Because then once you realize you have something viable, that's where you go. You're going to need to find a kitchen that will be able to be your first place to actually get licensed and be able to truly sell your product.
I have one more thing to say. The people that are successful in our kitchen, they just make one thing, right? They make brownies. They might make 4 flavors of brownies, but they make brownies. They make farm to table meals, like meal prep or whatever. That's what they do. They make these healthy meals. And so I talk to a lot of people all day and they're like, oh, I make everything for everyone. And I'm like, no, you really need to narrow it down and you need to get focused, and then you can grow your product line from there. So start with brownies and add cookies later once you're successful with the brownies.
Really good advice. The other question that I have, I know we sort of touched on it when we talked about leveraging technology within your businesses, but where do you see as your individual businesses, where's the industry headed? What innovations are you seeing? I know there was a question about for Fuddruckers, is there an app coming? Can we get a pickup window? So sort of what are the innovations that you see coming?
Absolutely. We are actually in process of developing a mobile app now and loyalty program. The brand is certainly behind in that respect. There are a lot of companies that have mobile apps and loyalty programs, and I believe that really is the formula for frequency and increasing frequency, is to incentivize and then reward people for choosing you over someone else. And so, it early on was something that I saw as a key to our future success. So we have engaged a company that we are working with now to develop a mobile app for Fuddruckers to make that food more accessible, and easier access for our guests.
Does anybody else want to chime in, or should we go to the next question? Okay, we will continue. Just as a side note, Mr. Clayton said he ate at Fuddruckers in Boston and thought it was great. So had to throw that in there.
Outstanding.
So what firms do you look at as leaders of innovation in your space or even outside of your space?
Well, I would say for me that I always look at industry leaders. And if you approach it, with a blue ocean strategy mindset, you're always looking outside of what people may typically would think are exit boundaries in your organization, or excuse me, in your sector in particular, and within your own organization, challenging people who work within it to think outside of the box, if you will. And so it's always important for those that are around me to have blue ocean strategy mindsets. And we look to the leaders of any particular segment. I mean, we've even benchmarked some of the industry leaders in clothing, fashion and clothing. We looked at car manufacturers. I mean, we looked at all the things that make them unique and dominate in their respective fields, and found how they were able to differentiate themselves. And a lot of it we saw was, thinking that was not limited. And so we encourage that type of thinking and innovation within our company at present.
I know for us, we also, definitely look at, the industry partners that are in this space. And, we really want to understand, it's really important for you to understand your competition for sure, and what they're working on, what they're doing, what their latest are, but also look at, for us, we're really excited about the autonomous space overall, right? So we're looking at, what's Tesla doing, and what's, some of the other big players in the space. We're looking at drone delivery, right? Like, what are the delivery mechanisms of the future that are coming in place, and what are they working on, and seeing how, there could be alignments there. So I think, it's definitely looking at your competition, looking at folks that might be, even having a process outside of it. If you go to a place and there's something that makes you go back to that business because of whatever it is, service or performance, whatever it is, sometimes, even though it might not be in your direct industry, figure out what made that so great that maybe could be applicable to your business. Those are things that we do, every day. Like, I have a mentor that tells me that he eats at every single fast food restaurant around, right? And he's one of the biggest out there, and probably one of the most successful. And, he goes every month, right? And so, every single month he's trying their sandwiches, trying their drinks, trying everything. And this is, at billion-dollar level. And he does that because he wants to always understand what his competition is doing. So
I'm always looking towards gyms, because I feel like because we have a membership kitchen that offers unlimited access, so we are kind of a gym membership. So I look towards and I also my business is built around community. So we created a community and then launched the kitchen. So I look at the Pelotons, where people are just obsessed with I have to ride my Peloton, and did you ride with this rider or whatever, that kind of thing. Or I'm looking at businesses like the blowout bars, where the people just they're going for that one service to get their hair blown out, and that's what they do, and they're so excited about that type of thing. So that's kind of where I go towards. Anything that has a big community component is really important.
That's great.
Camilla,
I
see that Tony Cooper has a question, and I'm making sure that we share that, because Tony was instrumental in making sure that all of us were participating in this panel today. But his question is to Mr. Perkins, as he says, what drew you to acquire Fuddruckers? So why that, and maybe not something else?
Well, I'd always been a fan of the brand, even as a teenager is when I first experienced it, and I fell in love with it, and I didn't believe that you could buy a better hamburger, and I still feel that way. And it brought back a lot of memories. It was a very nostalgic experience for me. We would go to basketball camp at Alabama State University, and on the trip to Montgomery from North Carolina, we would always make sure that we stopped at Fuddruckers. And so it brought back memories for me to learn that the brand was going to be sold. I wanted to make sure that I put my hat in the ring as we were, looking to diversify outside of just contract services, and, felt like there was a marriage between contract and retail. And so, we wanted to find ways to be able to do that. And so Fuddruckers presented that opportunity. I was familiar with the brand, but, I was as a consumer. So it was one that I was connected to, that I believed in, and I thought had a great product. and wanted to position myself to be able to compete for it and competed for it and successfully won. So very excited about the future. And so now the real work starts, and we got to get the brand turned around and stabilized and ready to grow.
Thank you. I know we have more questions in the chat. We are just running out of time. We could probably keep going all afternoon, but we are going to close it out. I just wanted to thank our panelists and our moderator, and thank you to everyone who submitted such thoughtful questions. You know, I just really appreciated the panelists just keeping it 100, right? So real, so much good information, that this has been great. So I'm going to turn it over to Dean Udoka for last remarks.
Thank you so much, Camilla. Let me take this opportunity to thank the management and marketing departments in our school for helping make today's Ford Forum a true success. I especially want to thank our moderator and panelists for a job well done. It is quite fitting that we have this panel on this week, the National Entrepreneurs Week. I'm so proud to have these esteemed entrepreneurs, all products of HBCUs, all thought leaders in their fields, to be here together with me. So thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate what you do and what you represent to our community. For the audience and our panelists, you could see me looking down as you were talking. I'm taking furious notes. I could not write fast enough to capture what you're saying, because that's what I do. I'm used to taking notes. So I take notes. And just a reminder for our audience. Just a few things. I wouldn't go too deep. A few nuggets from the presentations. Dare to fail up. Be vulnerable, ask for help. Hire better, go a little slower. Find the best network to surround yourself with. Entrepreneurship brings freedom. That resonated from, I think, all three panelists. Wealth as a tool to positively impact the lives of others. Be an exemplar for others in your community. There's so much. So when you see me looking down, I wasn't texting. I was taking notes to make sure that I capture this, because there's so much packed into this period, and I truly appreciate all of you. We saw Jilea on the news last night. Our company featured. This is just an example of what you all mean to our communities, and I really thank you so much. All year, our School of Business Administration has been celebrating our 75th anniversary with events like these Forward Forum series. And we take this time to appreciate, to thank you, to exemplify what we do to lift our communities. Traditionally, we end each of these events by pinning our special guests with our commemorative pin, which is shown there. And I will send one of these to each one of you, so that as a token of our appreciation for what you do, we would go around and pin you. We can do that on Zoom. So all of you, our moderator and our panelists, you get a pin. And this is our commemorative pin, lapel pin for this occasion. It does symbolize our appreciation for your time. We could not pay you for the time you've spent with us, but we surely appreciate it. It represents our hope that you will continue to engage with the CAU School of Business Administration. And I thank you for being here for our students, and thank to all of you who joined us online today for the Forward Forum. Many thanks. Everyone have a good morning and a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take good care.
Thank you so much, Dean Udoka, and another big CAU thank you for our moderator and our panelists. Please visit the School of Business website. So you can learn about upcoming Forward Forums, to join our mailing list. Students, you can check your Canvas page for any updates. We're also on Instagram. And if you want to watch the replay, it'll be posted to our YouTube page. Thank you so much, everyone.